I still remember the exact second the room went quiet. "Go on," my mother-in-law said, her smile thin and sharp. "Why don't you sing for everyone?" I was standing in the middle of a luxury wedding hall in downtown Chicago, hundreds of eyes on me, crystal chandeliers glowing overhead. People laughed softly. Some leaned forward, already expecting the embarrassment. I could hear someone whisper, "Isn't she the uneducated one?" Another voice followed, amused. "This should be interesting." My hands were shaking. I hadn't planned to step onto that stage. I hadn't planned to be humiliated in front of an entire family dressed in silk and tailored suits. And yet, in that moment, I was given only two choices: walk up there and be mocked, or refuse and be remembered forever as the woman who ruined a wedding. My name is Rachel Miller. I'm 33 years old, a wife, a mother, and according to my mother-in-law, the family's greatest disappointment. I live a quiet life with my husband David and our 4-year-old daughter, Emily. I don't wear designer labels. I don't speak with confidence at formal dinners, and I don't have a college degree hanging on the wall to impress anyone. I lost my parents when I was young. By the time I was 16, survival mattered more than school, so I dropped out and went straight to work. That single decision followed me into every room I entered after marrying into David's family, especially when his mother, Linda Harrison, decided who I was allowed to be. Linda had built her identity on excellence, prestigious education, perfect posture, impeccable taste. In her world, worth was measured by diplomas and titles. From the day David introduced me as his girlfriend, she looked at me as if I were a temporary mistake, something he would eventually grow out of. When we married, her opinion never softened. At family gatherings, she would casually ask where I went to college, then smile when I said I didn't. "Oh," she'd say lightly, as if discussing the weather, "I suppose not everyone values education." Every sentence landed like a reminder. You don't belong here. David tried to smooth things over. He'd squeeze my hand under the table, whisper that his mother didn't mean it that way. But she always did, especially when other people were around. The wedding was her favorite stage. It was David's sister's big day, held in one of the most expensive hotels in the city. White roses everywhere, live music, guests flown in from across the country. Linda had been in her element all evening, greeting relatives, correcting servers, making sure everyone remembered who held influence in this family. I stayed near the back, holding Emily's small hand, hoping to remain invisible. That hope ended the moment Linda spotted me. When the speeches were over and the band paused, she stood up and tapped her glass. The room turned toward her instantly. She didn't even look at the bride first. She looked straight at me. "Rachel," she said loudly, her voice smooth and controlled. "Why don't you come up here and sing something for us?" A ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. I froze. "Sing?" I asked, barely audible. "Yes," she replied, tilting her head. "It would be nice for everyone to see what you can do. Don't be shy. Consider it contributing." People began to smile. Some laughed openly now. Linda leaned closer to the microphone and added, "After all, even someone without much education must have some talent, right?" My face burned. I could feel Emily grip my fingers tighter. David looked at me, stunned, then at his mother, unsure whether to intervene. Linda's eyes never left mine. "Go on," she repeated. "Everyone's waiting." And in that moment, standing between humiliation and defiance, I realized this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a test. And no matter what I chose, my life inside that family was about to change. There was something my mother-in-law never knew about me. Not because I lied, but because she never once cared enough to ask. Before life forced me to grow up too fast, before survival became my priority, music had been my refuge. In high school, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the uneducated one. I was the girl who stood at the front of the choir room, counting time, correcting harmonies, guiding voices that trembled the same way mine once had. I had been the choir leader, the one teachers trusted to keep everyone together. Singing wasn't a dream of fame for me. It was simply where I felt whole. When I dropped out, that part of me didn't disappear. It just learned how to stay quiet. Years later, after marrying into David's family, I learned quickly which versions of myself were acceptable. Music, to Linda, was not something you felt. It was something you proved. Degrees, competitions, rankings. Without those, she believed talent didn't exist, So I stopped mentioning my past. I kept my voice training lessons private, scheduling them like a secret indulgence between work shifts and school pickups. Singing became something I did behind closed doors, usually late at night when Emily was asleep and the house was finally quiet. I told myself that was enough, that I didn't need recognition, that joy could survive without validation. Then Emily started humming. At first, it was small things, nursery rhymes in the back seat, little melodies she made up while coloring. One afternoon, she looked up at me with wide eyes and asked, "Mommy, can you teach me to sing?" My heart tightened in a way I hadn't felt in years. I didn't push. I didn't turn it into a lesson. I just sang with her, softly, naturally. When she asked again, I found a local children's vocal class. Nothing fancy, just a warm room, a kind teacher, and kids who loved making noise together. Emily blossomed. She came home smiling, eager to show me what she'd learned. She practiced without being asked. She laughed when she missed notes and tried again. Watching her, I felt something dangerous growing inside me. Hope. That was when Linda found out. It happened by accident. She called one afternoon, her tone casual, asking if Emily was home. I told her Emily was at singing class, then realized too late what I'd said. There was a pause on the line, long enough to feel heavy. "A class?" Linda repeated. "Who's teaching her?" I explained carefully that it was just a children's instructor, that Emily enjoyed it, that it wasn't serious. "It should be," she said flatly. "Music is not a hobby to be played with." The next words came fast, criticism disguised as concern, questions framed like accusations. By the end of the call, she had already decided that Emily's teacher was incompetent and that I had no sense of direction when it came to my own child. "I'll teach her," Linda declared. "She needs proper guidance." I tried to push back. Gently, I told her I wanted Emily to enjoy music, not fear it. That pressure could ruin something beautiful. Linda laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "You wouldn't understand," she said. "You don't have the training." When David came home, the conversation continued. He listened quietly, torn between the woman who raised him and the woman raising his daughter. I saw the conflict in his eyes, and that scared me more than Linda's certainty. When he finally said, "Maybe we can let my mom try for a bit," something inside me sank. I agreed, but only with conditions. No yelling, no harsh criticism, no forcing perfection. Linda smiled and nodded, as if indulging a child. She arrived the next day with sheet music and expectations. Within minutes, I knew I had been wrong to hope. Her voice grew sharp when Emily missed a note. Her patience thinned when my daughter hesitated. "Again," she snapped. "You weren't listening." I watched Emily's shoulders stiffen, her excitement draining away with each correction. I tried to intervene. Linda waved me off. "You'll distract her," she said. "Go do something useful." By the end of the lesson, Emily was silent. That night, she sat at the table and whispered, "Mommy, I don't want to sing anymore." Those words cut deeper than any insult Linda had ever thrown at me. In that moment, I realized something I had avoided for years. Staying quiet didn't protect me. It didn't protect my child. And the cost of keeping the peace was becoming too high to ignore. The first lesson began quietly, almost deceptively so. Linda sat Emily straight-backed on the piano bench, smoothing the sheet music, as if arranging something fragile and expensive. Her voice was calm at first, precise, almost pleasant. She asked Emily to sing a simple scale, then a short phrase. Emily complied, a little nervous but eager to please. I stood nearby, pretending to tidy the living room while watching every movement out of the corner of my eye. It didn't take long for the tone to change. "No, that's wrong," Linda said sharply. "You're breathing incorrectly, again." Emily tried once more. Her voice wavered. "Still wrong," Linda snapped. "You're not listening." I stepped closer and said carefully, "She's just getting started. Maybe we can slow down a little." Linda didn't even look at me. "This is how you learn," she replied. "If you can't handle hearing the truth, you shouldn't be singing." Emily's small hands tightened in her lap. She nodded and tried again. Her voice quieter now, less confident. Linda corrected every note, every pause, every breath, never once saying she'd done anything well. When Emily hesitated, Linda sighed loudly, the sound heavy with disappointment. "Focus," she said. "You're making the same mistake again." After half an hour, Emily's excitement had drained completely. She sang because she was told to, not because she wanted to. I could see it in the way her shoulders hunched, in how she avoided looking at me, as if ashamed of failing. I tried again to intervene. "Linda, maybe she needs a break." That's when she finally turned toward me, her eyes cold and irritated. "Please don't interfere. You wouldn't understand proper training. Why don't you do something useful instead of hovering?" The words stung more than I expected. Not because they were new, but because my daughter heard them. The lesson lasted nearly 4 hours. By the time Linda left, satisfied and self-assured, Emily barely spoke. She went to her room without asking for help, without humming, without singing the little tune she usually made up while brushing her teeth. That silence followed us through dinner, through bath time, through bedtime. When I finally tucked her in, she held my hand tighter than usual. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice shaking. "If singing makes Grandma angry, I don't want to sing anymore." My chest tightened, and for a moment I couldn't speak. I brushed her hair back and told her it was okay, that she didn't have to do anything she didn't want to do. She nodded, but her eyes stayed sad, confused, as if she had done something wrong without knowing why. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen long after everyone had gone to bed. I replayed every moment in my head, every time I stayed quiet, every time I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere, every time I chose peace over protection. The next few days followed the same pattern. Linda arrived with new sheet music and higher expectations. Emily grew more withdrawn with each lesson. When she sang correctly, Linda simply moved on. When she made a mistake, the criticism came fast and sharp. There was no encouragement, no laughter, no joy. Music had become something to endure. On the 5th day, Emily broke. Linda had just corrected her for the 3rd time in the same measure when Emily's lip began to tremble. She tried to keep singing, but the sound caught in her throat. Then the tears came, sudden and unstoppable. "I can't," she cried. "I don't want to do this anymore." Linda's expression hardened. "Crying won't fix anything," she said. "If you want to quit, that just means you're weak." Something inside me snapped. I stepped between them without thinking. "That's enough," I said, my voice steady, but louder than I meant it to be. "She's done for today." Linda stared at me as if I'd committed a serious offense. "You're raising her to give up," she said, "just like you did." I didn't answer. I picked Emily up, feeling how small she was in my arms, how tense her body had become. She buried her face in my shoulder and cried silently, as if she was afraid of being scolded for that too. Later that evening, after Linda left in visible anger, I sat with Emily on her bed. "Do you hate singing?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "I just don't want Grandma to teach me." That was all I needed to hear. The next morning, I made the call. I told Linda that Emily would be returning to her original class. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain. When the insults came, I listened, then ended the conversation. For the first time, I chose my daughter over keeping the peace. The silence that followed wasn't calm or comfortable. It was tense, fractured, heavy with unspoken resentment. But when Emily smiled again after her first class back, when she sang freely without fear, I knew something had changed. The cracks in our family were finally visible. And once they appeared, there was no pretending they weren't there anymore. Linda waited until the room was ready for her. The band had just finished a soft instrumental piece. Glasses were raised, conversations blurred into a warm hum, and attention was drifting comfortably across the hall. That was when she leaned toward the microphone again, pressing a hand to her chest, as if suddenly weak. "I'm not feeling very well," she said, her voice carefully strained. "I'm afraid I can't sing tonight." A ripple of polite concern passed through the guests. Before anyone could respond, her gaze slid toward me, slow and deliberate. "But Rachel can," she added. "Why don't you sing solo for us?" The silence returned instantly. I felt it before I heard it. That sharp pull in my stomach. That familiar heat climbing my face. People turned in their seats. Some smiled with curiosity. Others looked away, already uncomfortable. Linda's lips curved slightly, just enough for me to see the satisfaction there. "Don't tell me you're embarrassed," she continued, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "You've been around music long enough. Or is that confidence only for private moments?" David shifted beside me. "Mom," he began, but she waved him off. "It's fine," she said sweetly. "We're family. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I looked at Emily, seated between David and me. She was watching closely, her small face serious, waiting to see what I would do. In that moment, something inside me steadied. I stood. As I walked toward the stage, I could hear murmurs behind me, a few soft laughs, someone whispering, "This is awkward." Another voice said, "Does she even sing?" Linda watched me with open expectation, certain she was about to get what she wanted. I stepped up to the microphone and glanced at the band. "I'll choose the piece," I said calmly. The pianist hesitated, then nodded when I quietly named the aria. It was not a safe choice. It wasn't familiar or light or meant to entertain politely. It was demanding, exposed, and honest. A piece I had sung years ago, back when I believed my voice mattered. As the first notes filled the hall, a hush fell that felt different this time. Not curious, attentive. I took a breath and began. The sound surprised even me. It rose clean and steady, carrying strength I had forgotten I still possessed. The room seemed to narrow, the crowd fading until all that existed was the music and the story inside it. I felt every note, shaped every phrase with intention, letting years of quiet discipline surface all at once. By the time I reached the final passage, no one was moving. When the last note faded, the silence held for half a second longer than expected, then broke open. Applause, loud, immediate. People stood. I saw hands clapping, faces stunned, mouths slightly open. Someone near the aisle said, "That was incredible." Another voice followed, "Is she a professional?" I looked down and saw Emily on her feet, clapping harder than anyone, her eyes shining. I stepped back from the microphone, my heart pounding, and offered a small smile. "Thank you," I said simply, "and congratulations to the bride." As I returned to my seat, Linda did not look at me. Her expression had gone stiff, controlled too tightly. The room buzzed now, alive with conversation that no longer included her narrative. Then my sister-in-law stood. "Mom," she said gently, lifting her glass. "You taught me so much about music growing up. I've never actually heard you sing. Would you honor us tonight?" A murmur of agreement spread quickly. Heads turned, smiles encouraged. There was no mockery in their faces, only expectation shaped by years of Linda's reputation. Linda froze. She laughed too loudly. "Oh, that's not necessary." "But we'd love to hear you," her daughter insisted, genuinely hopeful. For the first time all evening, Linda looked unsure. Declining now would be noticed. Accepting meant stepping into the same light she had just pushed me into. Slowly, she rose. When she reached the stage, the energy shifted again, but not the way it had for me. She began confidently enough, but within moments, the strain showed. Her pitch wandered, her timing faltered. The voice she had always praised so highly struggled to hold the room. The applause at the end was polite, sparse. As Linda returned to the table, her face flushed, she leaned toward me and hissed, "If you hadn't sung like that, none of this would have happened." I met her eyes calmly. "They wanted to hear you," I said. "I think they expected more." She said nothing after that. The celebration continued, but something essential had shifted. The image she had crafted so carefully no longer held, and as I watched Emily laughing with her cousins, free and unafraid, I knew this night had changed more than just a performance. It had changed where the power in that room truly belonged. 2 days after the wedding, Linda showed up at our house without calling. I knew it was coming the moment I saw her car pull into the driveway. She walked in with the same rigid posture she always carried, her coat still on, her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't ask about Emily. She didn't sit down. "I can't let what happened go," she said. "You owe me an apology." For a brief second, the old instinct surfaced. The urge to soften my tone, to explain myself, to keep the peace. It was a habit I had practiced for years, but something in me had shifted, and I could feel it clearly now. "I'm not apologizing," I said calmly. Linda stared at me as if she hadn't heard correctly. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." I took a slow breath. "No, what happened wasn't about you singing badly or me singing well. It was about control, and about Emily." Her eyes flickered, just slightly. "You almost destroyed something my daughter loved," I continued. "Not because she wasn't good enough, but because she didn't meet your standard of worth. That's not discipline, that's fear." Linda scoffed. I was trying to make her better. She was already happy, I said. You were the one who took that away. The room felt heavy, like every word was pressing against years of silence. Linda's voice rose, defensive and sharp, listing her credentials, her sacrifices, everything she had achieved. I let her speak. When she finally stopped, waiting for me to retreat, I didn't. You taught music like it was a weapon, I said. And if you ever want to be part of Emily's world again, that has to change. She looked at me, stunned. Who do you think you are to lecture me about music? I held her gaze. Someone who knows what it feels like to love it. There was a long pause. Then I said the words that surprised even me. If you want, I can help you. I can teach you, not to embarrass you, not to prove anything, but to remind you why music mattered in the first place. Linda didn't respond. She picked up her bag and left without another word. For the first time, I didn't feel shaken after she walked out. I felt steady. The weeks that followed were quiet. Tense, but quiet. Linda didn't visit. She didn't call. David worried, but I told him we needed to let things settle. Emily returned fully to her class, her laughter slowly filling the house again. She sang freely, without flinching, without fear of being corrected into silence. Then one afternoon, Linda came by. She stood in the doorway, uncertain, stripped of the authority she usually carried so effortlessly. I've been thinking, she said. I was wrong with Emily. It wasn't a grand apology. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. From that point on, things changed slowly. Linda learned to listen, to wait, to praise before correcting. She sat beside Emily during practice instead of hovering over her. When Emily struggled, Linda encouraged her instead of criticizing. I watched closely, ready to step in if I had to, but for the first time, I didn't need to. One evening, Emily asked if we could all sing together. We did. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished, but it was warm, honest, and filled with laughter. Linda smiled in a way I had never seen before, not proud or superior, but simply present. I didn't win by humiliating her. I won by refusing to disappear. I kept my voice. I protected my child. And I drew a line that no one could cross again. If you've listened to this story from beginning to end, I'd love to hear from you. Did this story resonate with you? What kind of stories should I tell next? Family conflict, self-worth, healing, or quiet strength? Please leave a comment, hit like if this story moved you, and subscribe to hear more stories from women who found their voices when the world tried to silence them.